Hi, I'm Cynthia Morgan, board-certified hypnotherapist and founder of the new HappySeek, HAPPI, Seek app. I've dedicated my life to helping people find true happiness, and that's why I created HappySeek. HappySeek leads you through a series of hypnosis sessions that guide you on a journey towards more joy and purpose in your life. Visit HAPPISeek.com to download the HappySeek app and try a free hypnotherapy session. HAPPISeek.com.
It's time. Apply for the MBA that fits your life. Johns Hopkins has classes available online and in person with new start terms 3 times a year. Earn your MBA from Johns Hopkins Carey Business School. Apply now at carey.jhu.edu.
Hey, it's Wilmer Valderrama from the Essential Voices with Wilmer Valderrama podcast. And this clip is brought to you by Walgreens. Walgreens makes it easy to quickly get last-minute gifts for everyone on your list with pickup in as little as 30 minutes. Get up to 50% off in fragrances. Valid through December 25th. Restrictions apply. See walgreens.com for details.
It's really compounded trauma lots of times, particularly by the time people are joining our communities, because often there's the trauma of the original reason that the person had to flee their country. People have fled for so many different reasons, but they carry that with them. And there's such profound loss, also a loss of community, loss of family when people have to leave.
Listen to Essential Voices with me, Wilmer Valderrama, every Tuesday as part of my Cultura Podcast Network, available on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.
I'm really excited to welcome a special guest to the Deal Board, Aurora Winter.
So my background is in film and television. So I have decades of experience in communication relating to book publishing, relating to movies, relating to the drama of communication. And I'm also a serial entrepreneur. I've raised $5 million for one of my own startups. My clients have gone from an average of raising nothing when they're just starting out to raising an average of $7 million. So I think I have a few things that will help your listeners.
In today's economy, more people than ever are looking to buy and sell businesses. But how do you do it? Welcome to the Deal Board, presented by Transworld Business Advisors. Straight talk about real deals and real people. Listen to stories, interviews, and expert advice to help your business sale, merger, or acquisition process. Now, here are your business exit experts, Andy and Jessica.
Welcome back, everybody, and to our next and latest episode of the Deal Board. Today, we're talking about a topic that we face in a lot of our business lives and we face in situations when you're buying or selling a business. But what happens when you are unexpectedly forced or pushed into a negotiation?
Yeah, I love negotiations. I love reading about it. I love studying it. I even think I'm a guru at some level. But the funny thing is you could still get caught off guard. I mean, I could remember a few times where, my car broke down and all of a sudden you're negotiating with a tow truck driver, or somebody walks through my door and starts immediately negotiating with me. And, your heart starts to race, your mind goes blank. And suddenly you're kind of reeling at the thought of losing at a quick checkmate by your opponent. And so we have some strategies right now to talk about like how to slow down the game and how to strengthen your position. So what's the first one?
Yeah. So the first one is to shut up and stay silent and calm, right? And this is a big thing we talk about in sales specifically, but for all negotiation is, just listen, take notes, appear interested and engaged in what's going on. You can mirror their words, making sure that they're feeling you're sympathetic to what's happening in that situation. And also by mirroring, you can clarify and verify what you're hearing in that listening area. It gives you some time to keep a cool head too. Right. So instead of just reacting right away, you can take in what you're hearing, reiterate it back to the person. That in effect does calm them down as it's calming you down too, to get kind of out of that reeling scenario.
Yeah. And it makes them work, right? That's what you want to do. You want to all of a sudden put them on the defense. So that's great. So the number 2 thing you could do is just walk away, right? It's okay to remove yourself if you're blindsided, especially if you're kind of like being attacked, right? So you could ask for a break if you're in a meeting, say, hey, I have to hit the bathroom if we're going to talk about this for a while. Or if you're on the phone, you just hang up, or you could just excuse yourself and just say, hey, listen, I don't want to talk about this right now, which is a perfect response. You could do that. Yeah. And, you could just kind of cringe at the whole idea that this is going. But, all you have to do is kind of just slow it down, and maybe let it start to allow to progress at a pace that is comfortable to you. It's all about just kind of like throwing them. You were attacked, so you're allowed to walk away too.
Yeah. It's interesting. In our world too, we see this happen sometimes. Like we'll have a buyer and seller talking, and the buyer will be like, what's your bottom line? What's the bottom number you have to sell for? And it's perfectly okay to walk away in those situations, and give yourself some time and some space. So the third thing you can do, and you mentioned Chris Voss in the document we were putting this together. I love Chris Voss and I love this tactic, is asking a calibrated question. So oftentimes if you're thrown into a negotiation, someone's asking you to do something for them or make something work for them. So you can almost reverse that situation and reverse that question and say, okay, how am I supposed to do that? Or what about this is important to you? Or help me figure out how you would like me to proceed. And sometimes when you ask those questions, you're giving the illusion, not just that the counterpart has control, but you're making them, again, going back to your point, Andy, right? You're making them work. Like you're making them come up with a solution. And sometimes they end up presenting a solution that's probably fine for you, right? Instead of negotiating against yourself, saying like, okay, I respect where you're coming from. Lay your cards on the table. What do you want me to do to make that happen for you?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. And I love Chris Voss, as you said. I recommend that book all the time. It's a great book to read because a lot of people think of negotiations as this like immediate fight. And it is sometimes, just like now, what we're talking about, but it doesn't have to be. And Chris does a great job of kind of breaking it down for you. And one of his other tactics that I love is setting an extreme anchor. So oftentimes, if and it works all the time, even if people know that you're doing it. So a lot of times people ask me, hey, what's your commission when selling a business? And my favorite answer is to say, well, at the closing table, we get 50%. And everybody laughs at that and says, oh, 50%. But it's an extreme anchor. So when I tell them what our fee really is, it seems really cheap. And even if they know that's what I'm doing, psychologically, it still works. And it can trigger a flight response that is often, sometimes people just don't know it's coming. It's kind of like when Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan till they're punched in the face. So
yeah, I do like what you say too, is, even if someone knows what you're doing, right? My husband and I both have studied Chris Voss and Sandler techniques and stuff like that. We both still know when we're setting extreme anchors against each other, but it works. It does.
It works.
Yeah. So the fifth thing you can do is you can pivot. So say that someone's offering something to you, you're offering a deal, right? And you don't like the deal. Instead of just changing the terms and then you're in this literal negotiation going back and forth, maybe negotiating like, I think it's worth 100,000. No, it's worth 200,000. No, it's worth 205,000, whatever it is. You could just pivot and change the terms altogether, right? You can look at the deal from a different scenario. You can flip the deal and say, instead of me buying from you, I want you to buy from me. And I think there's an episode we did this way back in Growing Through Acquisition, where we had a really great interview with Trent, who's an acquirer of businesses. And he always says that when he's in a negotiation, if the seller names a price, he won't counter on price, he'll counter on terms or the structure of the deal, which is kind of like an illustration of this pivot. Is don't get caught in this battle of fighting back and forth over one piece of the negotiation. Pivot it and flip it to a deal structure or a better scenario that works for you. And it could be the complete opposite situation as what the other person is presenting.
Yeah, I remember the story of a guy who wanted to buy an Arby's, and he was rolling up all the Arby's, and there was one owner that said, I want $1 million for my Arby's. And it wasn't worth $1 million. It wasn't worth close to $1 million. But the guy was stuck on $1 million. And he said, so the guy who wanted to buy it said, I'll pay you $1 million over 30 years. The guy's like, I don't care how long, just as long as I get my $1 million. And over 30 years, that's, it didn't cost him that much, right? The time value of money, right? So he was willing to move forward. So, and pivoting, is kind of like what's next. And my favorite tactic is the flinch, right?
I was gonna say, are you going to demonstrate it for us?
Sure. So, when somebody gives you a value proposition, you literally go, oh my God, I can't believe how expensive that is. Now that's a physical flinch. Now, if you're on the phone, you could actually go, oh, I didn't realize it was going to be so exciting. And human nature is anytime someone flinches and the other person is empathetic, unless you're talking to a sociopath, if you're talking to someone who is empathetic, they want to soothe that pain. It's just human nature. So if you show that you're in distress somehow, and it doesn't have to be over dramatic, but it could be as simple as, ooh, or just shifting in your seat and showing you're uncomfortable. It may, it buys you time. And it also, people will react. So my favorite flinch story is I was negotiating with an attorney one time. He was going on and on about his services. And eventually I just had to ask him, I wanted to hire him, but I asked him, how much is this going to cost? And this happened to be in a small little town outside a big city. And it was about 2 hours outside the big town. And I asked him how much, and he said, well, it's $25,000. And I just went like that. And he said, in the big city, but up here in so-and-so, it's going to be $10,000. So it was a $15,000 move in like 2 seconds. So it works. It's a good thing. But if it doesn't work, at least you know who you're dealing with. You're dealing with someone that really has no emotional attachment, perhaps, to you.
You're dealing with a sociopath, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, really, all these things that we're talking about is you're in this situation and you're presented where you weren't expecting to go into a negotiation. You weren't expected to go into a discussion like this. And you need to buy yourself some time, create a little discomfort so the other person wants to help soothe that discomfort, like Andy says, and set yourself up for the win by making the other negotiator, the other person across the table for you, work hard for the situation. I think all of these too, like a caveat is it takes practice, right? I mean, Andy, I think you taught me about the flinch, 8-9 years ago. And I've been working on it, but you've been working on it for years and you flinch sometimes. I don't even think you do it.
Yeah,
right?
I think I do it just kind of instinctively now when somebody gives me a value proposition. It was funny. I think that flinch that I did with the attorney was instinctive. In fact, my wife was there and she was laughing at me, but she's like, that was an amazing flinch. So, yeah. But listen, when you're attacked like this and when it's an unexpected negotiation, they're coming to you hoping that it would be, right? And I think people do it to me a lot because they think I'm a really good negotiator. So they have to try to catch me off guard. And the best thing to do is just wind down the situation, especially if they're emotional, right? You're not going to get anywhere when they're emotional or they're heated. It's great just to pivot or just walk away or just slow things down.
Yeah. So what we're going to do today is we're really teeing up, again, these situations are presented when you're in a buy or sale process for a business, and you're going to have to be prepared for this. We do also have an interview coming up with Aurora Winter. She's an expert in human communication, and human communication is really the basis for everything we do in life, but in business as well. And how we communicate, how we establish bonding and rapport is what Aurora and I cover together. And thinking about this interview and listening to it is how can you apply it to your business negotiations, these unexpected situations, or even just developing better relationships as you're trying to pursue the sale of your business or buying a business. All it comes down to is relationships and how they develop through your communication styles.
It's a great interview. I listened to most of it so far, and it's worth listening. So everybody should stick around and listen to that and our deal of the week and listing of the week, of course. Things are just so busy these days. It's just crazy.
I know it's a crazy market. There's a lot going on. So we're continuing to have those deals and listings of the week. If there's other topics you guys want to hear about, or if you need more information on how to participate in this growing and quick market, you can always find us on the dealboardpodcast.com. You can follow us there too. We've got our new YouTube channel that we've been pushing for the last few weeks. And we also have our links to our Facebook and our Instagram and LinkedIn pages, all that good social media stuff.
All right. Well, let's get it started.
Let's do it.
Transworld Business Advisors is the world's largest business brokerage and mergers and acquisitions firm with over 500 brokers in nearly 200 offices worldwide. Transworld's team handles thousands of business sales every year. To be connected with a qualified business broker or learn more about the buying and selling process, visit tworld.com/the deal board or call 888-719-9098.
Hey, Andy, do you know what time it is? It's time for our deal of the week.
Deal of the week. Sold. Hey, welcome back, everybody. And it is Deal of the Week. And we have Gary Goldwasser here from Transworld Business Advisors of Rocky Mountain. Very successful office, and Gary's super successful. And he just closed the deal. And we love deals like this, service businesses, white-collar service businesses. Sounds like a great deal. So tell us more about it, Gary.
Yeah, it was an advertising agency that actually knew the owner for, previous life for about 15 years. And we connected again. He was getting ready to sell his advertising agency. They sold it to a strategic buyer who was also in the advertising industry. It was an SBA loan. It sold for about 3 times SDE, $500,000 deal. And the owner's going to stay on for another year contract, who he wanted to stay on and still have a job. So it was a great deal for everybody.
Yeah, it sounds like great deals for great people. And so business has been good, right?
Unbelievable. We had our best year in 2020, and 2021's looking like it's going to be another banner year. So,
all right, Gary, if somebody wanted to sell something else like that, how best to get in touch with you?
They can get in touch with me at ggoldwasser@tworld.com or 303-748-7420.
You got it. Thanks, Gary. Appreciate it.
Yeah, well, you're welcome. Thank you.
Welcome back, everybody. And today, as we continue our negotiation episode, I'm really excited to welcome a special guest to the deal board, Aurora Winter. Aurora is an award-winning, best-selling author. She also has her MBA, and she's a successful serial entrepreneur, which we'll hear about in a few minutes, media trainer, and creator of the Spoken Author Method, and founder of Same Page Publishing. She has 2 books, Turn Words into Wealth, and a new one that we're going to hear at the end of the episode that she just released. But Aurora, I would love to welcome you to the show, and thanks for joining us on the Deal Board.
Oh, so great to be here with you, Jessica. And I look forward to giving your listeners some tips about the art of negotiation.
So I just gave the listeners a really short tidbit about your intro. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey in your own words?
Sure. So my background is in film and television. So I have decades of experience in communication relating to book publishing, relating to movies, relating to the drama of communication. And I'm also a serial entrepreneur. I've raised $5 million for one of my own startups. I have a track record of helping entrepreneurs craft and practice and deliver their own unique $1 million message to help them raise capital or exit or negotiate better. And my clients have gone from an average of raising nothing when they're just starting out to raising an average of $7 million. So I think I have a few things that will help your listeners.
Yeah. I mean, you've been in their shoes, right? So
Yeah, exactly.
like you said, serial entrepreneur, you've been one of us, been one of the listeners. We're so excited to be here. So one of the things we want to focus on today is you talk about what the top 4% of communicators do differently to communicate powerfully. And I found like this is a really good topic to tie into our negotiation segment for today. So why don't you just tell us a little bit more about your expertise in that area? And what do you mean by communicate more powerfully?
Well, I think communication is essential, whether you're negotiating, whether you're selling your business, you're buying a business, whatever we're up to, it's always words. Every time I've had a jump forward in my business, it's always related to communication. So most people are familiar with the Pareto principle, the 80-20 principle. That means that 20% of your activities will bring you 80% of results. Well, I have an MBA, so I can do math. So 20% of the 20%. So if you do the math, that's 4% will bring you the bulk of your results, or 64%. So I really encourage people, think about what are those activities in the top 4% that will deliver outsized results, and they are communication. So Steve Jobs practiced for 3 weeks before the Apple launches. Now, why did he practice so? I mean, he's running a huge business. He had so many other things to focus on. Why was it worth 3 weeks of his time? Because his body needed to know what his mind wanted to say. He needed to have it, in muscle memory. He needed to practice it so that everything was smooth and easy and he wasn't anxious. And also maybe he could tighten it or that kind of a thing. So I've experienced, and my clients have experienced, I'm sure you've experienced it too, Jessica, that communication is essential in great negotiation. You can also set yourself up for success by, one, deciding to focus on communication. And I'll give you some tips about the neuroscience of communication. But so many people, they focus all their time on getting their pitch deck right, getting their numbers right. They're rushing until the last moment. And then they haven't set themselves up for communication or for negotiation because they're totally in the wrong energy state. And they've forgotten what their $1 million message is. And they're not leaning back in a sense of confident about what you have to provide, and that you're, the answer to somebody's prayers, and they get all scattered dealing with analytical things like numbers. I'll talk about the neuroscience of communication, but I want to give you a chance to butt in here, Jessica.
No, I think it's so interesting. And it's funny because when we're talking about negotiating deals and buyers and sellers, it is very accurate that piece of people just choose not, it's not, I guess they don't choose not to focus on it, but it's almost like they forget about the communication portion, right? There's so many times we'll be in deals and either on a buyer or a seller, right? They'll be concerned about what you said, the pitch deck or the numbers or their deal structure or how they're going to present the offer. But why do you think that communication piece falls last in our priority structure when we're doing these types of business deals?
I think it's just that we need to remind ourselves to bring that up at the top. That's why I talk about that top 4% of activities. It's so easy to get focused on the minutia. And what matters most is your energy and your clarity. I mean, I just finished taking an MBA in 2015, graduated with my MBA, and we had a great course on negotiation. Having other options is a great way to be confident in negotiation. And that's what Jessica does for you and her company, because obviously they are going to bring you multiple options. So what I suggest is that you work on the numbers, you work on your pitch deck, you work on everything that you have to present, but then a day before you stop. And the day before, get yourself in a great space, go for a run or exercise or do yoga or breathe, and focus instead on the big picture. Let's talk about the neuroscience of communication if we can. Would you like to jump into that, Jessica?
Yeah. I'm super interested. I love neuroscience, and especially when it ties back into business, but I did want to touch, that is a great tip, right? So not only is it giving you a break from all the minutia, right? And clearing your headspace and clearing your mind in preparation for all of this. Also, I like it too, because it allows you not to procrastinate, right? So you're not writing your pitch deck like the hour before that you're going on stage. And I love your example. Yeah, Steve Jobs. Yes, he probably knew all of those Apple products like the back of his hand, right? But he took a step back, he took some time, and he practiced and he rehearsed. So I didn't want the listeners to lose that piece. But yeah, let's jump into some neuroscience. Let's jump into the nerd side of it.
Yeah, well, just to yellow highlight that, because everybody knows how to talk, we just assume that we can just wing it. But when you're in negotiation, or when you are dealing with you're on the TEDx stage and you're delivering a talk, it's much more like being a ballroom dancer than just walking. We know that ballroom dancers have practiced, they have choreographed, they have timed it, and they have put a lot of effort into making it look effortless. And
Right.
so this is the effort that we need to put into those high intensity, high payoff moments like negotiation. And it's not going to come up automatically because we fall to the level of our training. We don't rise to the challenge in the moment. So you're not going to like that come up with the most brilliant thing if you've never said it before.
Right.
Okay, so the neuroscience of communication. And I lived in Silicon Valley, so I deal with a lot of super smart analytical engineers, and they get way too much focus on the numbers and they forget, okay, what is the big picture? So in negotiation, remember the other person is probably very busy. They probably don't have your expertise. And the biggest mistake is immediately thinking to go into the weeds or into the details. So very commonly, people who've gone to university, the more educated and the smarter they are, the more likely they are, or you are, to make this mistake, which is to imagine that if you send the verbal equivalent of an Excel spreadsheet to the other person, that they're going to open it with Excel and understand it. And that there couldn't be farther from the truth. Don't do that. You're going to sabotage yourself. So there's 3 stages in neuroscience. And I talk about this in detail in my new book, Turn Words into Wealth. But you will remember this right here, right now. So the first step is to deal with the ancient croc brain. So just imagine you are on your beautiful white stallion and you're coming up to this castle. There's a moat. There is a crocodile in the moat. Well, before you speak to the king and queen, those are the people who can say yes to your deal. Those are the people that you want to negotiate with. You're not going to yell at them from the outside of the moat. You have to get back the croc brain. So your initial communication needs to be short, needs to be snappy, and it needs to communicate to the ancient reptilian brain, which doesn't understand Excel spreadsheets, but it does understand, is this something new? Is this something interesting? Is this something I can mate with? Is this something I can eat? Is this something yummy? So you need to start with something simple, a simple statement that's yummy. Okay. So if you pass that test, and also not boring and bland, because the crocodile also eats you if you deliver the same message that they've heard 100 times before that day. Okay. So you'll remember this, right? So you get past the croc brain. So the drawbridge comes in, you trot in on your beautiful white stallion. Are you talking to the king and queen yet? No, they are not immediately waiting for you by the gate, right? So the lords and ladies are there. The stable boy is there. Well, you're passing another test. You're passing the mid-brain test. That is the social test. That is the status test. In other words, it's the sniff test. So you might have got past the crocodile, but if you haven't washed for 2 weeks and you're looking like a beggar, you won't pass the social sniff test. So this is another great way that Jessica and her team can be helpful to you, because by being introduced at that level, you're already communicating that you've passed the sniff test. You know, my new book, Turn Words into Wealth, has won 5 or 6 awards already as a #1 business book for 2021. So that's the social SIF test. So testimonials or referrals, or what do other people think about you, basically. Okay, so you have to pass that test. So that's what your second message needs to be around that. And then you will be led into the throne room, assuming you've passed that test. Okay, so if you've watched Game of Thrones, you know that Cersei is there with her son, and you need to communicate to both of them. I'm going to oversimplify, but let's just assume that the queen wants stories and emotion, and the king wants logic and numbers. Let's just oversimplify. So you need to alternate between stories and emotion and numbers in order to communicate. And you don't want to deliver your whole 20-minute talk all uninterrupted. You want to engage them. Okay, so what am I saying? I'm saying neuroscience, 3 steps: croc brain, midbrain, and then maybe your Excel spreadsheet. But only once you get permission. Does that make sense, Jessica?
It really makes sense. I love the metaphor too, right? Because it's memorable, right? You were doing the same thing. You were telling us a story in that setup, and also infusing not numbers, but the analytics, the reasons behind why it works. So you're actually doing it. You're demonstrating it for us while we were talking, right?
Exactly. And it doesn't take that much longer, but it's so much more memorable. It's repeatable. You could go and tell somebody else that now, Jessica.
Yeah. And it makes sense too in the world we live in, right? So we're dealing with entrepreneurs and small business owners, whether it's buy, sell, prep to sell, whatever it looks like, right? So I was thinking when you're talking about the croc brain, my husband's a perfect example of this, right? But if an email comes into his inbox that's longer than like 1 paragraph, it doesn't get read, right? The crocodile eats that email, right? So, and we see this a lot in our industry too. And we see, mainly I see it more with people searching to buy a business, right?
Mhm.
So we'll get an email or that introductory communication where it'll dump a page of why they're the perfect buyer, what the deal structure is that they're looking for, the perfect seller that they want. You know, it has to be this EBITDA in this location with this amount of employees. And it gets very tactical. And like I said, it's, you know, usually a page long, and it doesn't pass that croc test. And we get a lot of those emails every week, right?
Yeah. Well, and the other thing, people buy with emotion and then they justify with logic. So when you lead with logic, you are not leading with how actually people buy. They may tell you that they bought because of the certain EBITDA or the ROI or whatever, but actually people buy, they buy a solution that they think will give them the feeling that they want. So when you're in negotiation, first you got a good team, because hopefully Jessica or, you know, Andy or whoever on their team will be
We've
there.
got a decent team. Yeah, we got a good team. Yeah.
So know that, and know that you have more than one option, and then be you. Like, take some breaths, have energy, have fun, and if it also, don't be afraid to say no. You can walk away, win-win or no deal, but help yourself get the right fit. I mean, I always say it's just not, you don't want to have every deal. You want the right deal. It's kind of selling a business. I think it's a lot like dating. Just because it's a guy doesn't mean you want a guy. You don't want any old guy. You want the right guy. You want the right buyer, the right partner.
Yeah. We actually call it a short-term marriage. I don't know, it's not like the most positive sounding like metaphor, but yeah, it's a short-term marriage, buying or selling a business, because you're tied together. So, I mean, you teach this stuff a lot. You're an expert in the arena. I mean, do you have any stories or examples of where this has really gone right, or really maybe not gone right, but wrong?
Yeah, I do have some. I have some good examples for you. I have so many. Let me choose one, and then I can tell you another one. Well, I'm going to be self-deprecating because I never want to make my clients look bad, but I can make myself look bad. So many years ago, my husband and I had started a very successful business, and it went from zero to the largest yacht sales and yacht charter company in Western Canada. And part of the reason why it had done so was because I had come up with a really great breakthrough idea, which was to combine tax shelter benefits with owning a yacht. So this was when I was just freshly graduated with my honors economics, and I was all excited about, you know, numbers and projections and Excel spreadsheets. And when we first launched this idea, which was marrying the tax shelter with people buying a boat to put in a charter fleet that we ran for them, I knew that it was $1 million idea. But you know what? The phone was not ringing, because when prospects would come in and I would give them this like phone book size numbers and IT bulletins and this and that, they were like, whoa, like she's trying to talk directly to the croc brain. I don't even know what she's talking about. It was like too much. So even though we had $1 million idea and we'd spent $20,000 on lawyers and accountants making it work, it wasn't taking off in the marketplace because I didn't have $1 million message. So this is the message that actually made the phone rings and grew that company from nothing to the largest yacht dealership in Western Canada and a multi-million-dollar company. It was this message: 5 weeks of sun, fun, and tax shelter. Coupled with a picture of people on a sailboat having fun on a sunny day. So that catches your attention, like, what? That doesn't go together. 5 weeks of sun, fun, and tax shelter? Huh?
Yeah.
So that was like, well, 10% personal use is 5 weeks. Most people don't use their sailboat more than 5 weeks. Anyway, right? Yep. Sun, fun, and tax shelter. There's tension there. Sun, fun, tax shelter. It's like, huh? It's kind of like the movie title Fatal Attraction. So it caught attention, right? And then they got a beautiful brochure that just had a few numbers and mostly pictures of boats and people having fun. And so then we walked them through a process that eventually, if they really, really wanted it, or their accountant asked for it, they would get the phone book.
Right.
So, you know, when you're negotiating, don't start with the phone book. And even though your idea may be absolutely brilliant, unless you can communicate it in kind of that croc brain way, like 5 weeks of sun, fun, and tax shelter, that's directly cock brain. Oh, what is that? That's attention getting. I've never heard of that before. That sounds like interesting. I want sun, fun, and tax shelter. So that's a little tip. I can tell some stories about my clients who've raised capital if you'd like, but what would you think about that story, Jessica?
I love that one because it was actually a really good illustration of the 3 different levels of communication that you talked about in neuroscience, and that your 5 weeks of sun, fun, and tax shelter, it creates that interest. Like, wait, what? That doesn't quite go together. I want to learn more. Right. And then you give them a little bit more with the brochure and a little bit more. And I was thinking about, kind of referring it back to our world too, and this on the seller side, right? This is why a lot of the times that we're not going to, if a buyer inquires about a business, we're not going to dump the full, financial deck on them at the first blush, right? There's confidentiality reasons that we do that as well while we're vetting the buyers, but we want to gauge the buyer's interest and give them a little bit more over time. And eventually, yes, dump the phone book, dump in our world, all of the Excel spreadsheets, right? So that we can do the financial analysis. But I love that story. I think it was a perfect visual illustration of what you're communicating in the neuroscience piece.
Yeah, great. And then I've had, for example, Jason Henneberry, he's the CEO of Mortgage Pal, which is sort of like an Amazon plus finance company in Canada. And he had a really small team of a dozen people, and really, really smart guy, smart team, great idea. But until he nailed his $1 million message, which we did together in one-on-one VIP coaching, he was not getting quite the traction that he wanted. But once he had nailed that message, then he went on, he raised $10 million. He went from a team of a dozen people to 400 on his team, and his company just took off. So oftentimes what's missing is there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with how your business is. There's nothing wrong with the idea. But if you could double down on mastering those 3 steps and deciding what are the most valuable things you could say to the croc brain, the midbrain, and then what is the smallest piece that you could start off with when you're talking to the king and queen, this will really help your negotiations go better.
I love it. This is such a great takeaway. I love the croc, the lords and ladies and the kings and queens, and distilling it down. I think your other tip at the beginning where we talked about like just prep ahead of time and then give yourself that 24-hour period to let the messaging sink in. If you're going into a negotiation, a meeting, a presentation to your team, it's all great. Now, my inclination is this is a work in progress, right? You don't go from, we'll call it less than ideal communication to perfect communication overnight. I'm probably right about that, right?
Yeah, you're right about that. It is a work in progress. Absolutely. I mean, I find it fascinating. I've spent decades learning how to communicate, and I'm still learning. There's like all these little things, but it's also about practicing. It's a lot more like going to the gym than you would think, or it's a lot more like ballroom dancing or ice skating. You need to continually practice it. So instead of thinking of every meeting as you did well or you didn't, like, what can you learn? What's one thing you could do better next time? The other tip I'd really like people to understand is framing. How the meeting is framed is decisive. So you can set yourself up for success by coming to the meeting already pre-framed as the expert, as the sought after commodity. And one of the ways to do that is by being a published author. So I talk about that in this book, Turn Words into Wealth, Blueprint for Your Business Brand and Book. But this little book, Marketing Fastrack, which just came out August 17th, was an example of a book as a minimum viable product. It was a very short book, and I used it to test, would the market be willing to, would they be interested in having me help them with their $1 million message and writing and publishing books? Because before that book, I was known as a coach trainer. So you can use a little book to test the market and pivot or expand your business, your product or service. So that is one thing to consider. But then if you have a book or several, you arrive at the meeting as an author. And what is authority? The root of authority is author. There are other things you can do as well to frame the meeting so that you are the desired, you or your business is the desired commodity. So what can you do to make your message to the midbrain, the status seeking brain, higher. So many of my clients, their book leapfrogs them to that next level, to get on the TED stage or to be speaking on TV, radio, or another thing. So think about that in advance, because you can do things to add to your message, but also you can change the assets that you have so that you are more sexy and irresistible to the croc brain, more sexy and irresistible to the midbrain. And then your message is tighter for the Excel spreadsheet king and queen kind of stage of things.
Yep. It's a great point. Like, the framing, positioning yourself as the expert or the desired product, like we'll call it, right? If your business is for sale. So another great tip. So we learned about that. We learned about the croc brain and the different levels of neuroscience. And then we learned about taking a break and really focusing on what our communication methods could be. Aurora, I could see a lot of our listeners wanting to hear more from you. Obviously, we don't have enough time together today, and we'll have to have you back on the show at some point. But for our listeners that are listening right now and they want to learn a little bit more about you, how to follow you, or if you could also talk a little bit about the book that just launched too, and where everybody can find it. All the listeners will drop all of these links into our show notes. But Aurora, just tell us a little bit more how we can connect further.
Oh, thank you. Well, the two most recent books, Turn Words into Wealth and Marketing Fastrack, are available, wherever books are sold. So Amazon, Kobo, Apple, Google Play, etc. And that would probably be your best first step to get more value. What I want people to know about the Marketing Fastrack is just a little tiny book that I used to pivot my business and expand what I was offering, but to test it quickly. And that little book generated $250,000 of new business in 90 days. So it was a successful test.
Yeah, that was a successful MVP.
Yeah, that was a successful MVP. So, and also in Silicon Valley, we talk a lot about minimum viable product, MVP. But a book can be a minimum viable product, and it can also be the other kind of MVP, most valuable player, which is, this whole sports thing. Because when you are an author, you change the status, you change the dynamic, and you become more sought after. So where people can also find me is on my website, aurorawinter.com, AuroraWinter.com. If they want more help with their message, they can sign up for a free breakthrough business call at bookcall.biz. And then I'm on LinkedIn. I'm not all over social media because it just takes too much time. But
I agree. I'm on LinkedIn as well. So so we'll connect. We'll drop all those links into our show notes for our listeners. Aurora, thank you so much for coming on to the show. You provided a ton of value to our listeners, and we hope to have you back on the deal board soon.
Thanks, Jessica. I appreciate it.
Hey, Jessica, you know what time it is?
Money time?
Almost. It's time for Listing of the Week.
Welcome, everybody. And we're coming to you live from our UFG Expo 2021. We've got some special listings of the week and deals of the week. And with us, I have Marty Fishman. Marty, welcome back to the show. We love having you.
Hi, Jessica. Great to be here.
So you have a Listing of the Week?
I do. I have a fantastic, actually, it's a sign print ad specialty vehicle wrap business established for 12 years. The owner is 67 years old, has hundreds of clients, a lot of name brand clients like car dealers and so forth. Does over $1 million in sales, makes about $275,000 a year. The seller's not looking to run away. He'll actually retire gently. So he's willing to stay on in a sales capacity. Really nice business on the market for $650,000 with $350,000 down. So it's a really nice business. If you know anybody that would like a business like that, please have them contact us.
I mean, Jessica, how many times do we hear, I want to buy a business where the owner's retiring?
All the time. I mean, that's probably the most popular ask from buyers. And if I'm doing my math right, what is that? Just about 2.5 times, right?
2.5 times with 50% down. It's got $250,000 worth of equipment. It's got really a lot of repeat business. Nice staff, about 10 people on the staff. So look, if you're in Florida, if you're in California, come to South Florida. This is a really nice business.
So Marty, if somebody wants to reach out to you, how can they contact you?
They could go to mfishman@tworld.com. They could call me at 954-296-2995. What else? Of course, you can always contact Transworld, and they will get you to me. That's listing number 0101-620-0016. How's that?
That's impressive. All right. Get in touch with Marty. Great Listing of the Week. Thank you so much.
All right, guys. Nice to see you.
Thanks for tuning into the show today. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends on social media. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcasting app. If you have questions, would like to appear, or have suggestions for topics for the show, get in contact with us through our website, thedealboardpodcast.com.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Morgan. As a board-certified hypnotherapist, I've helped thousands of people like you experience greater joy in your life. My new app, HappySeek, H-A-P-P-I, Seek, uses hypnosis to help you find inner peace, explore your purpose, and become happier. Harvard, the Mayo Clinic, and Stanford studies show that hypnosis can help you make beneficial, lasting changes. Download the app at happyseek.com and try a free interactive hypnotherapy session today. That's HAPPI, seek.com.
At Atos, we are more than digital, we are digital with purpose, designing the future of the information space. Leaders in the secure and decarbonized digital transformation, we are helping companies create a better future for all. Atos will modernize and maximize your business's technology. We have unmatched expert solutions in cybersecurity, cloud, high-performance computing, and decarbonization. And we've provided tailored cybersecurity solutions for companies across the globe. Get the leader in cloud and digital workplace at Atos.net. That's Atos.net. Atos, bringing you the future today.
Four from the South is a new podcast hosted by me, Steve Healy.
And me, Fabrizio Copano.
Guess what, America? You are part of Latin America. You may not like it, but it's happened. Time to learn about Mexico, Central America, South America. It's part of your world.
Each week, we'll bring you 4 stories from Latin America. Get to know your neighbors.
Listen to Four from the South on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Brought to you by Vitamin Water. There's something good in it.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Morgan, board-certified hypnotherapist and founder of the new HappySeek, H-A-P-P-I, Seek app. I've dedicated my life to helping people find true happiness, and that's why I created HappySeek. HappySeek leads you through a series of hypnosis sessions that guide you on a journey towards more joy and purpose in your life. Visit happyseek.com to download the HappySeek app and try a free hypnotherapy session. happyseek.com.
It's time. Apply for the MBA that fits your life. Johns Hopkins has classes available online and in person with new start terms 3 times a year. Earn your MBA from Johns Hopkins Carey Business School. Apply now at carey.jhu.edu.
Hey, it's Wilmer Valderrama from the Essential Voices with